As you've read by the title, Miss Goody Two-Shoes, the teacher's pet. Good girls, I'm talking to you. Basically, I'm gonna psychoanalyze the hell out of you guys right now. Okay, this is running off of the idea of hyperfemininity as a mask. Women in media who portray themselves in a certain way, but it's really a mask for repressed or closeted lesbianism. This idea that we can use hyperfemininity or we can use a sanction of femininity to mask our sexuality. Part 1. What is a goody two-shoes character? What is a teacher's pet? And how do I attribute this to sapphic culture? A goody two-shoes character, in my own sapphic words, is a femme-presenting lesbian who dresses and acts in a manner where heterosexuality cannot be challenged. She is the epitome of girlhood. This is a lot. You present yourself in such a way, in such a pure way, and you follow the rules and you go by the books, and you're using it as a mask for your repressed lesbianism. Oftentimes we can see this dynamic with teachers' pets, female students in general who kind of have this dynamic with the teacher where it's kind of like a psychological mother-daughter relationship, because oftentimes you will find this person having severe maternal issues going on at home, whether or not their mom is present, whether they have abandonment issues, whether their mom is way too critical. There is usually some sort of issue stemming from motherhood, right? They usually have perfection issues, other issues revolving around communication. They can come off as a little bit anxious or bossy sometimes, and this is all a mask. This is all a facade. And so, in order to talk about this archetype, and it's very complex, I feel like we should talk about lesbians in general and lesbians in academia, lesbians specifically in the workplace, and the difference between the heterosexual mindset versus the lesbian mindset. A lot of people get confused when I say that. Think about it, like back in the day where sexuality had to be repressed. The only way to truly spot a lesbian psychologically speaking was a level of dedication that they have. So because we live in a male-centered world, and because females are programmed to center men, lesbians inherently don't. We don't center men in the way that heterosexual women center men. Our focus is more so on our career, more so on our art, more so on whatever it is that we're doing. The level of dedication that we have towards that thing is what differentiates us from heterosexual women. And I've noticed this all the time, because heterosexual women place so much value on a man, they don't know themselves. For example, if you are attracted to men, you seek them out naturally. You spend more time studying them, and the kind of attention men get from you can be emotionally draining. Lesbians are not attracted to men. We do not waste our time peacocking to men, and when they do not pay us attention, it will hardly bother us. Our emotions and attention, if not on women, are usually fixed on our hobbies, business pursuits, school, etc. Men don't interest us, but when we cannot say who interests us, our interest, and this is very important, we will shift our interests onto our personal pursuits. And whoever the teacher is, we want an A+. We can come off as very, very driven. And I've noticed this about lesbians in general. Even in the workplace, lesbians are very driven. They're very focused on whatever it is that they're doing. They're 100% there. Because we don't center men in that way, we're more focused. That's why oftentimes you'll see lesbians as the only woman in their field, because they're so dedicated to it and they're not scared of entering a field where it's just men. We're not really so concerned about their opinion, to be honest. As with the teacher's pet, I assume that this kind of archetype is a perfectionist. She loves rules, they give her safety and security. She loves her studies, and being number one in class is her saving grace. She puts on such a good act, no one will question her sexuality unless they know what to look for. The teacher's pet / goody two-shoes is your local lesbian hiding in plain sight. Her affections and relations to the teacher is the most meaningful connection in her life. She centers her life and her priorities around school and aims to get the highest marks to please the teacher. The teacher then reciprocates with encouragement, thus continuing the cycle. Usually, not always, you will find this person having severe mother issues, not enough attention, too much attention, but in the wrong way. Her relationships with her mom is a struggling one. Abandonment issues can also be common, as these sorts of secret relationships are common in all-girl boarding schools. They recognize power and realize that they are in a predicament where they don't have much, and so aligning with the teacher can give you that power. So an example of this is this one movie that I've watched recently. It's an old French film, Olivia, 1951. It made me realize how similar I was to Olivia in that way. I guess I need to give a synopsis. So Olivia is new to this all-girls boarding school. There are two headmistresses with very complex and striking personalities, and right off the bat you have to choose which professor would you prefer, kind of thing. So there's a competition going on. In the movie, Olivia talks about coming from a broken childhood, very unstable, always moving around because she was the black sheep. Even in the ball, she would wear traditional Indian garments gifted to her rather than those long poofy dresses akin to her peers. I feel like this is why Mademoiselle Julie had such a lasting effect on her. She was finally validated by someone she liked in a position of power, favored even. So that's where favoritism comes in. And favoritism, it's not good for anyone. It's not good for the student and the teacher. It is not good for the other classmates around them. It is not good for anyone. And so being favored is actually not really a good thing. Even though we might feel like it is in that moment, sometimes we don't realize that we're being groomed. But anyways, Mademoiselle Julie would seduce Olivia by threatening her with presents. When Mademoiselle Julie would not show up in her room that night as expected, she would fucking hate it. But when she would love it and she would crave it. And when she didn't show up, Olivia would cry, literally go insane for her approval. Mademoiselle Julie has a history with seducing students, at least in the past. She still has tendencies that are quite vampiric in nature, only because she'll probably never admit to herself and to anyone else that she's a lesbian, so it comes out in a different way. For example, Mademoiselle Julie is one of the best teachers in the school, but her gay tendencies tend to come out with her female students, even if she did not intend to seek that kind of relationship with them. Subconsciously and almost naturally, she will arrange them in a way that positions herself at the center. It's like playing with Barbie dolls and choosing the prettiest one to fuck around with for that day, only to leave them psychologically damaged instead of physically. Mademoiselle Julie is selfish in that way because she does not admit her feelings for Miss Cara until she's dead. She will only experiment with her sexuality through students unknowingly, and this type of dynamic is very unfair to a student like Olivia, who obviously has queer undertones and is young, first and foremost, and is figuring her shit out. Mademoiselle Julie is a very avoidant, attached person as well. She is the classic lesbian trying to find her ex in other lesbians, claiming that she's a victor because she always stops just in time or knows when to pull away as soon as things get too real. Like a vegetarian vampire seeking a short thrill from her human counterpart, only to stop herself just as soon as she is about to draw blood from her victim's flesh. Miss Julie sweeps her baggage under the rug, but Olivia does nothing but try this baggage on herself. The name of the movie is called Cracks. It's about a swimming teacher who has a very strange almost like adult like friendship relationship with her diving team. So there's this one student that comes in from Spain, and she's like a princess, and she's had this pretty tumultuous life before going into that school. And so this time, this is a teacher falling for a student, and, you know, God, I could talk about so much about this film. Like, this film just highlights so much. Like, first of all, the anxiety issues that are present among, you know, this group of people, especially Miss G. Miss G's mother issues and how she projects that onto her students. And her, first of all, asphyxiation kink. And so, I mean, what's the point of all this diving if there's no competition? Like, who are they diving for and why? Like, what? Like, and then there's even, like, a scene in the movie where they all go diving naked, which is very questionable, and you question, like, okay, like, what's really going on here? Like, why is this, again, another example of a teacher experimenting with her sexuality through her students? So, Fiamma had asthma, but she was also the best diver. And it's this, like, feeling of, and the thrill of walking on eggshells between death and life, heaven and hell. It's anxiously addictive. Fiamma was everything Miss G was not. So she was like mirroring her, or what she could be in a way. Miss G became infatuated with her own youth. Miss G played a very narcissistic mother to these girls. She saw rebellion and she needed it tamed. These girls, once again, was basically everything that she wasn't, and that created a very convoluted dynamic and unhealthy dynamic within the diving team.
Part 2. The girl!
By the way, everything here is, I mean, it's theoretical. Like, I shouldn't have to say that. It's a theoretical principle based on psychology. It's all concepts. And so anybody trying to, you know, be a comment warrior, oh my god, this is bullshit. Not every person who goes to Catholic school or an all-girls boarding school is going to be a lesbian. And that's true. And I'm not saying that every single girl who goes to an all-girls Catholic school is a lesbian. I'm saying that there are commonalities within certain traits, certain ways of thinking that I can attribute to lesbianism. At the same time, they're all a little bit gay. I love masks too. I love masks. I want to make a video psychoanalyzing masculine women. It's just that this is where my focus is right now, and I hope that people can respect it and wait for their turn. When I go there, I will go there, and I will fully immerse myself into that. But I can only do one project at a time. I think the juxtaposition of classic teachers' pets, love stories taking place in the chapel, and in all-girl boarding schools is just fascinating. Catholicism plus lesbianism equals the Virgin Mary aesthetic. How can I brand myself as pure but still act in sin?
I'm a Christian. It's really easy to be a prude when you're not attracted to him, isn't it?
This line delivery struck me for several reasons. The first being that in the movie, like, yeah, she says that she's from an all-girls boarding school, so we can assume she's talking about some sort of religious affiliation. So basically, she has the handbook for being a prude. Prude 101. Good job, Hillary. She embodies prude, being a goody two-shoes as a mask for not only maternal issues, but lesbianism in general. It's kind of genius. Secondly, her role of administering the rules she subconsciously does not follow is the whole point. Living a lie, a facade, not getting caught. Faking heterosexuality to the best of your abilities to appeal to the teacher is such a sapphic thing to do. Who is the best at performing femininity? It is insinuated that Hillary is the teacher's favorite. This is not an appropriate scenario considering this is a reformed lesbian we are talking about. She cannot express homosexuality through romance, so she will express her passion through her love for the teacher. She will express it through her many talents, endeavors, and most importantly, being really anal about her job. It's like how we were little girls and we made our dolls kiss each other. Our Bratz dolls, Barbie dolls, Ever After High dolls, if you were a queen. We made them kiss, and from the outside it looks innocent enough, but On the inside, I'm performing my own little lesbian fantasy. Honestly, if I ever felt horny or like hot as a child, my parents would shut that shit down. No, sex is not a topic of conversation. Even though you experience feeling that way at a young age, nobody wants to talk about that. Nobody wants to talk about how it's part of growing up. It's part of the development of a human being is sex, and that's why it's a taboo. Being a teacher's pet does not automatically grant you intelligence and special quirks that will make you stand out like Twilight or even Fiamma. Sometimes it is a lack thereof that can also omit the same want to please response as shown in Olivia. Olivia does not feel smart or pretty enough for Mademoiselle Julie, yet Mademoiselle Julie often pays her special attention because she can see Olivia's potential. She slowly alters herself and her world to fit Mademoiselle Julie's standards. Another example would be So this movie is a very feminist movie made by a very lesbian feminist director, and I followed her work for a really long time. In fact, she directed But I'm a Cheerleader, and I think you guys should go check this movie out. It's around an hour and 30 minutes. It explores a lot of topics such as queerness, feminism, and how that overlaps sometimes. I think it's a great movie. So Sadie's a feminist. She graduated from college. She was amazing in her women's studies. However, her older partner, who runs a pretty world-renowned nonprofit, critiqued Sadie's activism and often saw her approach to the feminist movement as juvenile and radical. It insinuated that Sadie started the CIA because her girlfriend inspired her to do so. This teacher's pet need to please, walking on eggshells attitude is the foundation of their relationship. Courtney often plays mother in that she tells Sadie what to do and is the breadwinner in their relationship. And Sadie plays her number one fan or daughter. Courtney's demands are often too much for Sadie's emotional maturity, and at times this can lead to a whole lot of secrecy, cheating, and lesbian bed death. They often have fights in front of Sadie's activist group. Either you're choosing your own philosophy or you're gonna choose me. Either you choose to live your life independently and freely, or it's me. So yes, this is like a classic mother-daughter relationship. If it was a normal lesbian relationship, it would be loving and supportive, you know, not toxic. It is 1 o'clock in the morning. Please bear with me right now, okay? I'm losing sleep to talk about lesbians, and this is what being alive is all about. Jumping out of planes, whatever. This is why I'm alive. Twilight Sparkle from My Little Pony. Hello? Twilight and Celestia also share a special bond. Sometimes I do feel as though Celestia compensated with Twilight and Sunset in replacement of Luna. She seeks qualities that are of Luna in her students. Twilight was an excellent example of how feminine perfection can be interpreted in a queer way. Twilight is thorough, anxious, intelligent, and with squeaky clean reputation. Twilight is also not around her parents most of the time and is mostly raised by her brother. When Celestia took Twi under her wing, it was like a second chance. I can feel heavy maternal energy radiating from Celestia in this way. Twi occupies her time with her magic, but learns to make time and value her friendships. My Little Pony fans can come for me, and this has nothing to do with what I'm talking about, but also everything to do with what I'm talking about. I find the Nightmare Moon hate to be unwarranted. The reality is that Princess Celestia was in competition with her sister, Princess Luna, and she felt sorry and she felt bad that she banished her sister to the moon. So she would look for qualities her sister had in her students, in her colleagues, in the people who she chose to be around. All because you were jealous that the moon would outshine the sun. I also had no intention of mentioning Pearl from Steven Universe, but golly, the repressed lesbianism going on. I mean, come on. Her relationship with Pink Diamond. If I recall correctly, I remember that Pink Diamond faked her shattering and Pearl had to shut up about it. This can be reminiscent of lesbians having to repress their sexuality in everyday life. Pearl is such a perfect example of this because you can see it in her essence. She aims for perfection. She is a perfectionist. Her issues with anxiety, her issues revolving communication, everything must be a certain way for Steven. Basically, her love for Pink Diamond, her love for women, her lesbianness is expressed through her maternal side for Steven, in that she aims to give Steven anything and everything, aims to please, walking on eggshells constantly. Purity is the ultimate lie. It is the ultimate facade. Going through this essay, I would hate to not have any real-life comparisons, so I would like to share a story. Guys, honestly, if you believe in the whole we're born gay, we're born a certain way, unfortunately, I don't believe that we are born anyway. I don't even believe we're born with sexuality. Generally speaking, I think that our experiences will determine what we like. And I do have a Freudian perspective, a Freudian mindset when it comes to psychology because so much of it makes sense. I do understand that he is not the most popular. Also, just to clarify, no one has to take my standpoint, my thesis as fact. This is basically an analytical essay based on tropes and my own personal observations. Now back to I need to share my childhood trauma because part of the reason why I even make videos like this at 1 a.m. is so I can understand myself better and give myself the power to live a more authentic life and break certain karmic cycles that have interrupted my life for so long. And I'm about to share with you one of the biggest realizations in my life. When Anamorphia was around 6 years old, I was plopped in an all-white public school meant for rich kids. I was one of the only black kids in the school and was the only black girl in my class. I often felt like Ruby Bridges in that I am black but also a black sheep. Due to my mother's hyper-religious Virgin Mary Catholic core ways, I was never allowed to celebrate pagan holidays like Halloween or go trick-or-treating. When everyone would do this march or parade of costumes around the school, I was the only little girl who was not in costume, but still had to partake in this walk. It was so embarrassing. It felt like the walk of shame every single year. My costume was that I was black, pretending to be something that I wasn't just to try and fit in. It was a reminder that I was different and should be embarrassed and shamed for it. Now, I don't look at Candy with the same eyes. Me and Candy are not like this. I'm not a child anymore. I have health morals. But back then, that was like gold. Candy was like gold. I mean, I was like 6. Being in a predicament where I felt like a loner and a point of constant humiliation, my first grade teacher favored me. She was not as liked among the other students, and I would often hear whispers about her being mean. And boy, oh boy, if you were branded as mean in the first grade, you might as well have been the Wicked Witch of the West herself. Anyways, outcasted girl plus mean teacher who favored me soon became an unstoppable duo. Oftentimes I would see why the kids would hate her. She was cruel. She was also not too amused with the boys in her class, but she was forgiving and kind to me. I don't know why she was, and so often kindness is really what I needed at that point in my life. Having a stable adult/mother figure in my life at that point was reassuring and comforting. I was born into absolute chaos at the time. My mother was tending to her mom who had cancer, and my father, an illegal immigrant who got arrested in front of my eyes when I was just 2 years old, giving me an unforgiving authority wound in my older years. By that age, I had lived in about 10 different places already. It felt nice to just have one person give me attention, even if this attention as I'm coming to realize, was not all it was amped up to be in retrospect. And it has me questioning as an adult now, was it a fetish? Was it a race thing? Was it a repressed lesbianism thing? I don't know, and I don't think I'll ever know. These are questions I now ask myself in regards to dating women now. In later years, this imprinted onto me, and I am now a lesbian, so you tell me I cannot unsee, for the forbidden fruit has already been bitten. I know that even if I end up showing interest in a man later down the road, one thing is for certain: my attraction to women sexually and romantically will remain eternal, immortal. And eventually, I too will have victims. I too will do their bidding. I too will make someone realize that they are a lesbian. It doesn't even have to be about sex. My methods will be purely psychological. I too will be the reason millions of young women finally understand their sexuality. It was as if she was a lesbian vampire seeking out the perfect victim to prey on. Olivia, 1951. Anyways, I often find myself repeating this pattern of relationship in my life, particularly with older white women. In my adulthood, I don't find it as flattering as I once did. Once I realized how repressed these women actually were, and how they were looking for an escape in me. Once I learned about savior complexes, repressed lesbianism, and the fetishization of black women, the more pity I felt and the less I played into this particular dynamic. You know, because I was so young, I was like 6 years old at the time, how could I understand the dynamics of race? Being multicultural at that age, because my dad was deported, I was actually living in Trinidad and Tobago, and I flew back to America to experience this all-white elementary school. And so my perception of myself was warped. I questioned this very moment where I was in kindergarten and all the kids were drawing themselves and I drew myself as white. I wasn't white. No, I came from Trinidad and Tobago with a full heavy accent and lost it within a matter of weeks because assimilation. When it comes to this teacher who was there at the right time, favoring me, I do wonder if it was a race thing, because for me, you know, losing my accent, she would always tell me, oh yeah, like, you know, speak in your accent again, and like kind of make it a spectacle or just this thing, and it made me uncomfortable, but this is what I needed. Like, I had a very unstable relationship with my mother, my parents in general. I needed maternal guidance and I got it from her, but it was the wrong kind. And so I do wonder if this relationship that I experienced with the teacher was, for lack of a better term, a pedophilic one, or a racial fetish kind of thing, or I don't know, but there was something weird there. Okay, let's compare it to Miss G and Fiamma. Like, Fiamma had come from a very turbulent situation going on in Spain. She was a princess. She got it caught up with a radical aristocrat, and she was sent to this all-girls boarding school. Miss G, a person who is anxious, who is a repressed lesbian, who aspires to be something like what Fiamma is, in that she is well-traveled and speaks multiple languages and is adventurous, but that's not what that is. That is a kid who has been plopped into a very uncertain, shaky predicament, and you as an adult are viewing it as, oh my god, like, this is everything that I've ever wanted to be for myself, and I want to leave it up for interpretation. What do you think happened? What do you think? Do you see any similarities within these stories? Let me know in the comments down below. I am very interested to hear your thoughts and opinions. My life is a very turbulent one. It's been turbulent ever since I was 6 years old, and I'm trying to break these patterns, and hopefully these videos will help me break patterns of instability and uncertainty.